There is a line on the ground in California nearly 1,300 kilometers long. It runs beneath cities, mountains, and highways, and beneath it, two giant pieces of the Earth's crust have been pushing against each other slowly for millions of years. This line is called the San Andreas Fault. It has caused some of the strongest earthquakes in the history of the United States, and just a few weeks ago, scientists discovered something that put the whole world on alert about it again. In this video, you'll understand how this fault was born, what the worst earthquakes it has ever caused were, how silent it is today, and why that silence may be the most worrying fact of all. To understand today's danger, first we need to understand how this fault was born 30 million years ago. To understand the San Andreas Fault, imagine that the Earth's surface is not a single shell. It is divided into enormous pieces called tectonic plates. These pieces float very slowly over a layer of hot, soft rock deep inside the planet. About 30 million years ago, two of these pieces, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate, began to meet in a different way. Before, one plate was diving beneath the other. After a while, they started sliding side by side, one scraping against the other. It was this sliding that created the San Andreas Fault. The Pacific Plate moves to the northwest. The North American Plate moves more to the south. The difference between them is small, just a few centimeters per year, roughly the speed at which a fingernail grows. But that difference never stops, and over time it stores an enormous amount of force hidden beneath the ground. The fault was only officially discovered in 1895 by a University of California professor named Andrew Lawson. He named the fault after studying it near a valley called San Andreas, south of San Francisco. 11 years after that discovery, the fault showed for the first time very clearly what it was capable of. On January 9, 1857, the southern part of the San Andreas Fault ruptured at full force. The earthquake became known as the Fort Tejon earthquake. It had an estimated magnitude of around 7.9. To give you an idea of how big that is, each whole number on the magnitude scale represents an earthquake 10 times stronger than the previous number. The ground moved from one side to the other along more than 300 kilometers. In some spots, the ground slipped up to 9 meters at once. Despite the enormous force, only 2 people died. That was not because the earthquake was weak. It was because in 1857, almost no one lived in that part of California yet. Today, that same region has millions of people living nearby, including parts of Los Angeles and San Bernardino. 50 years later, it was the northern part of the fault's turn to show what it too was capable of, and this time, right beneath a large, crowded city. In the early morning of April 18, 1906, the northern part of the San Andreas Fault ruptured right beneath San Francisco. The earthquake had a magnitude similar to the one in 1857, also around 7.9. But this time, the city sitting on top of the fault was large, full of wooden houses and narrow streets. The shaking itself was already destructive, but the worst came afterward. The city's gas pipes broke, and the fires that started because of it lasted several days. Much of San Francisco caught fire because many water pipes had also broken, and firefighters had no way to put out the flames. In total, the earthquake and the fires together killed more than 3,000 people. To this day, it is considered the largest confirmed earthquake the San Andreas Fault has ever produced, tied with the one in 1857 in strength, but far deadlier because of the size of the city it hit. But, according to scientists, the fault still holds the capacity to generate an earthquake even stronger than those two. After 1906, the San Andreas Fault kept causing other significant earthquakes, though none as large as the first two. In 1989, a magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck the San Francisco Bay Area near Loma Prieta. It killed 63 people and brought down part of a well-known bridge in the region. In 1994, a magnitude 6.7 earthquake struck the Northridge neighborhood near Los Angeles. That earthquake killed about 57 people and caused billions of dollars in damage. An important detail, the Northridge earthquake did not happen exactly on the San Andreas Fault. It happened on a smaller hidden fault underground that scientists didn't even know existed before that day. This reveals a frightening detail. The San Andreas Fault is the most famous and most studied in the region, but it is not the only one capable of causing destruction. There are several other smaller faults nearby, some not even fully mapped yet, but among all these California faults, it is the San Andreas Fault that scientists fear the most, and the reason has to do with a number that keeps growing. When people think of a big earthquake in California, many remember movies with buildings collapsing, giant waves, and entire cities being destroyed in minutes. The real thing is frightening enough without any movie exaggeration. The greatest danger of a big earthquake is not just the shaking itself, it is everything that comes after. Old buildings can collapse, bridges and roads can crack, water and gas pipes can break, which greatly increases the risk of fires the way it happened in 1906. In some parts of California, the soil is softer, made of loose sediments. When the shaking passes through this kind of soil, it can become even stronger at that specific spot, even far from the fault. This has already been seen in entire neighborhoods of Los Angeles. An important detail to bust a very popular myth. Unlike what some movies show, the San Andreas Fault alone is not capable of generating a giant tsunami. That's because this type of fault makes the plates slide sideways, one next to the other, and not up and down. Giant tsunamis usually need a very large vertical movement on the ocean floor, which is not the case for this specific fault. That does not make the danger any smaller. It just makes the danger different from what movies show. And according to scientists, this real danger may be closer than at any other moment in the last 100 years. Here is one of the most important facts in this entire video. The southern part of the San Andreas Fault, the same one that ruptured in 1857, has not had a big earthquake in more than 169 years. That might even seem like a good thing, but for scientists, it's the opposite. Studies show that this part of the fault tends to rupture, on average every 140 to 160 years. In other words, by the experts' calculations, this part of the fault should have already ruptured again. There is an even more extreme part. A specific section of the fault, farther south, near the Coachella Valley, has not suffered a major earthquake in more than 300 years. It is one of the longest seismic silences ever recorded on a fault of this type anywhere in the world. Meanwhile, the northern part of the fault, the one that ruptured in 1906, is relatively calmer because that year's earthquake already released much of the force built up there. But underground, the force does not disappear. It just keeps building up like a spring being pressed tighter and tighter, waiting for the moment to release. And it was precisely about this pressed spring that in June of 2026, the most worrying scientific study about the San Andreas Fault in many years came out. In June of 2026, a group of scientists from the University of Hawaii and the University of Bern in Switzerland published a study that drew the attention of the whole world. They built a computer model that simulates how force builds up and releases along the San Andreas Fault and another neighboring fault called the San Jacinto Fault. The result, the force built up in parts of these two faults, is at the highest level in the last 1,000 years. The scientists also found a special point called Cajon Pass, which lies between the two faults. This point works like a kind of gate. Sometimes this gate locks and stops an earthquake from passing from one fault to the other. Other times it opens and the earthquake passes from one fault to the other, forming a much larger and more dangerous event. According to the lead researcher of the study, Liliane Burkhardt, if this gate opens during a strong earthquake, the result could be a quake between magnitude 7.4 and 7.8, affecting a much larger area than if it were just one of the faults alone. The reason for concern is simple. The researchers found that today's conditions are similar to the conditions that existed shortly before some of the largest earthquakes ever recorded in that region over the last 1,000 years. And this completely changes the way scientists calculate the chance of a big earthquake happening in the coming years. Scientists cannot predict the exact day of an earthquake. No one can, but they can calculate the odds of a strong earthquake happening within a period of time. The main geological survey agency of the United States, the USGS, keeps an up-to-date calculation on this. According to this calculation, there is more than 99% chance that all of California will feel a magnitude 6.7 or stronger earthquake within the next 30 years. In Southern California alone, that chance is 93%. And there's about a 7% chance of a magnitude 8 or stronger earthquake happening somewhere in the state, also within the next 30 years. It may sound like a small number, but for an earthquake that size, 7% is considered high by the experts. It's important to understand one thing: these numbers are not an exact prediction of when the earthquake will happen. They are more like a rain forecast. They don't tell the exact day, but they show how favorable the situation is for it to happen. And if a very strong earthquake really does happen in this region, scientists already know more or less the size of the damage it could cause. The San Andreas Fault lies entirely within the United States, passing only through the state of California. It does not cross into other countries, but the size of the area that could feel a strong earthquake is enormous. If a very strong earthquake happens on the southern part of the fault, Cities like Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, San Diego, and the entire region known as the Coachella Valley could feel shaking strong enough to cause serious damage. According to a detailed study called Shakeout, carried out by hundreds of American scientists, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake on this part of the fault could cause about 1,800 deaths, 50,000 injuries, and more than $200 billion in damage. If the earthquake happens farther north near San Francisco, cities like San Francisco, Oakland, and the entire Bay Area would also fall into the risk zone, the way it already happened in 1906 and in 1989. It's important to remember again, even with the possibility of a very large earthquake, no one knows exactly when it will happen. It could be a month from now, it could be 30 years from now. What scientists do know with fair certainty is that the force beneath the ground keeps building up day after day, waiting for the right moment to break free. And when that happens, it will be one of the most studied and most feared natural events in the entire history of the United States.